What's up guys, Meredith with ExtremeTerrain.com, and today we're checking out the Barricade HD plate style full width front bumper with LED fog lights fitting all 2021 and newer Ford Broncos, excluding the Raptor models. Now this front bumper will be tailored to the Bronco owner looking to achieve not only an aggressive presence compared to the factory plastics, but add some useful function that the OE setup just doesn't offer. With that being said, the utility for off-road scenarios is going to benefit you here, whether you go every weekend or just once in a while, and the addition of high-powered LED lighting if you're in search of a well-rounded setup to enhance all aspects of the front end, including your front end visibility. Now this front bumper has multiple different features that will benefit you in really any scenario. Now starting off with the overall shape, this is going to be compact and provides clearance with the angle that ends on the side, yet still offers you great mid-width protection, especially with the overrider hoop for the grille. Now compared to other options, this will not have a winch plate, but the bumper will include welded D-ring mounts and included D-rings, which will give you two solid recovery points in the front so you can use it to anchor yourself or get yourself out of a predicament. This does, however, prioritize a customized lighting setup, including two 3-inch LED cube lights to replace your fog lights that will be much brighter and much more efficient, a space in the middle for a light bar, and even more mounting tabs up on top of that overrider hoop, which gives you a ton of options for accessory lighting. Now the build here will be just as robust as that list of features, with a thick steel plate construction being thick enough to take a hit and protect the front end of the Bronco. Now on top, the steel will also have a fine texture black powder coat finish. It is going to be a 2-stage, which will offer that toughened look, but it's also going to resist the rusting on any of the steel underneath incredibly well, especially from harsh elements. Now the lighting will also be tough with an IP67 waterproof and dustproof construction, an aluminum housing, and a thick polycarbonate lens that's going to resist any damage if you're taking heavy pickup off-road or any branches to the front of those lights. Now with that, the bumper will also be bolt-on, and the lights will come with a wiring harness, so you're not going to have to worry about any modification, drilling, or extra wiring when it comes to the install, and we'll show you how to do that in just a sec. Now this will come in at roughly $1,000, which is right in the middle of the road when it comes to pricing. Now compared to other options available, this is not going to only be right in the middle with price, but also when it comes to what's included in the package. Now this isn't going to have every single bell and whistle that some of the pricier options do. However, if you don't necessarily need those extra things like a winch plate, multiple forms of lighting, you just want a sleek looking and functional front bumper for your lighter off-road and your street adventures, then this is going to be a fantastic pick. Install is going to be a 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter and should only take you about 2 hours to get the job done. Now at this point, we can head over to our shop and check out a detailed breakdown on how we put this on our Bronco so you can get it onto your Bronco at home. So that's going to wrap it up for me. Let's go ahead and jump into it.
Tools required for this install include an impact gun, a ratchet, a clip remover tool, a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 18 millimeter ratcheting wrenches, 13 and 16 millimeter wrenches, a couple different size extensions, 10 and 15 millimeter swivel sockets, 10 and 13 millimeter sockets, all of the included Allen keys, and some zip ties. What's up guys? Today we're installing a front bumper on our Bronco, so let's get started.
So the first thing we need to do is hop underneath and remove our skid plate. It's held in by 6 15 millimeter bolts. We've got 2 up front in front of our tow hooks, 2 in the middle, and then 2 in the rear. So I've got a 15 millimeter swivel socket to remove all of these bolts. Now with our bolts removed, we can slide that over our tow hooks and remove it.
Next, we can go ahead and pop off our plastic cover. This goes from here all the way to the corner. So we'll just get behind the edge here, pop that out, and work our way over to the other side. And then we're just gonna press in on the tabs on our parking sensors to remove those connectors. And now with those removed, that will give us access to our 3 bolts holding this in. So I'll take a 15mm socket. I'm gonna remove the first 2 fully and then leave this last one a couple threads in until I'm ready to pull this off so that doesn't fall on me. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. So now we'll fully remove those 2 bolts. We can pull our bumper back, and we do have a connector over there on the driver's side that's tucked just above this lower trim. So we'll just follow the harness up to that, press in the tab, and disconnect our connector. So over here is where we have our harness. We're just gonna follow it up to just above that lower trim, press that black tab in, and it'll pop this out. Next, we can come to the back side of our frame horns and remove our bolt plate. We have one of these wing nuts on each side that we'll just twist to the left to remove, and then we can slide that out. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. Next, we're gonna have to remove our parking sensor harness from the bumper. We have this big bracket that goes across the whole bumper, held in by a couple 15 and 10mm bolts. So we'll grab 15 and 10mm sockets, pop that out, and remove our harness. First, we're gonna disconnect our fog light connector by pushing in on the black tab and popping that out. And then we'll grab our 15mm socket for these 2 bolts on the end. And then we can switch to our 10mm socket for these 2 bolts. And then you'll do that same thing on the other side. Now with all of our hardware removed, we can lift up on that center bracket. And now we have a few clips that are holding in our harness, so we'll grab a clip remover tool to pop all of these out. Now we'll get our clip tool, pop up all these clips. Then you can do that same thing on the other side, and we can fully remove our harness. Next, we can grab our 2 plastic covers and pop our parking sensors out of those covers. So to pop these out, we're just gonna pry back on these 2 tabs and then wiggle our sensor out. Now you're gonna wanna keep these in the exact order you removed them in. Now you're gonna wanna remember the orientation that you had these in. We're gonna pop all of our sensors out, and then we're gonna put those into our bumper first so that we have them in the right order. So now we're ready to start putting together our new bumper. We're gonna start out with our parking sensors. Now we have a new foam ring to go around the sensor, as well as a spacer and this cap that's going on the end. Now if you don't have any parking sensors, they have these little caps that you can pop into the holes for the parking sensor to give you a cleaner look and not have any holes in your bumper. So the first thing we're going to do is take our parking sensor and pop off the ring around it. And we're going to replace that with our foam washer. And then we can drop this down into place. We're going to press it into that hole. And then we'll take our foam spacer and press that onto our cap. And then we'll slide the cap over our 2 tabs and press it in. This little cutout is gonna face where the connector side of the sensor goes. And once you do that for one, you can repeat the same process for the other 3. Now next, if you have an adaptive cruise control module, you'll need to bolt that up to this bracket. This is gonna go on the back side of this bracket here. And then we have our cover that'll be going on the front side. If you don't have adaptive cruise control like we do not, you can just use this cover and bolt it to the front for a cleaner look. You could leave this open too if you would like. We're gonna throw that cover on. So we're gonna take our button head bolts and slide those through the cover. And then on the back, we're gonna get a flat washer, a lock washer, and a nut. And then we're gonna do that same thing for the other 4 holes. And now I'm gonna grab the included Allen wrench for our bolt side and a 10mm socket for our nut side to tighten these down. Next, we can install our grill across the middle. Now, if you have a light bar that you're mounting here, you won't put your grill in, obviously, but you will still use these brackets to mount it up. So you'll take your bracket with a hex bolt and a flat washer, and then another flat washer, lock washer, and nut. Then you'll leave it loose enough where you can adjust it, and we'll do that same thing on the other side. Now, if you have a light bar, you would lay that down in there, and then there are shorter silver bolts without nuts that you would thread into the light bar. However, we have this grill, so we're gonna be using another one of those bolts with the flat washer, and then flat washer, lock washer, and nut on the other side. And now we're just gonna center this up. And I'm gonna take a 13mm wrench and ratcheting wrench to tighten down the bracket bolts first. And then the grill bolt. And now when we come to the other side, we're gonna tighten down our grill to bracket bolt first. And then we'll tighten down our bracket bolt. Next, we can install our top bar. From the top, we're gonna be using our M8 Allen head bolts with lock washer and flat washer. And then on the bottom, we have a flanged nut. Now this rail for a light bar is gonna go towards the rear. So we'll lift this up, slide our hardware into place. Now to tighten this down, I'm going to be using the included Allen wrench for the bolt head, and I'm going to use a 13mm socket to tighten down the nut. Now next we can install our fog lights. First, we're gonna have to slide this bracket into place. And then we can drop our screw down and get our included Allen wrench to thread that in. Then we'll flip to the other side, line it up, thread in our screw, and then we'll grab our bolt, slide that through our bracket, and then slide that down into place. We'll get a flat washer, a lock washer, and a nut on the end of our bolt. And then we can snug this up by hand so that we can adjust this and get it all centered up. And that looks pretty good. So then we'll grab a 14mm ratcheting wrench to tighten down our nut. then we'll grab that included Allen key just to finish tightening up those 2 bolts, keep it nice and snug. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. Next we can install our studs. So we'll slide the double stud plate through the 2 holes and get our retainer clips. Thread that on. Same thing for the other stud. And then on the other side, we have our single stud. We'll thread our 1 retainer clip onto there. And then we'll do that same thing on the other side. Next, we can install our license plate bracket. So we'll grab our button head bolts with a flat washer and then put it through our bracket. And then on the back side, we just have another flat washer and a lock nut. And then I'm going to grab the included Allen key on the bolt side and a 10mm socket on the nut side to tighten it down. And now once we have that installed, we can take our 2 plastic clips and we'll just press these into place. Next, we can bolt up our reinforcement brackets. So first thing we're gonna have to do is pull off this cover from our tow hook. We'll set that aside for now. And then we can get our outer bracket. This is labeled with a D for driver. So we'll slide that in place and then we'll get our long bolt with a flat washer and put that through the hole. And then we can get our plate for the other side. Slide that up into place. Next, we can install a flat washer, lock washer, and nut on the other side of our bolt. And then we'll take a 16mm wrench and 16mm ratcheting wrench and tighten this down. And then we can grab our tow hook cover, slide that back on, and repeat the same process on the other side. Next, we can get our parking sensor wire harness back into our bumper. Next, we have a hole right down here that we can zip tie our harness to keep that up and out of the way. I'll run one of the zip ties through there and around the harness. And then we'll take a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters to chop off the excess of our zip tie. And then we can do that same thing on the other side. So now before we get our bumper mounted up, we're gonna do our wiring in the engine bay first. So I've got it laid out kind of how it'll go. I've got our 2 connectors that are going down towards the bumper. We're gonna drop those right down behind the headlight. We've got our switch here that's gonna be going through the firewall and into the cabin. And then right by our battery, we have our 2 terminal connectors that'll go to our battery terminal. First, we can start off by shoving our switch through the firewall. We have this grommet down here right next to our brake master cylinder. So I'm just gonna peel back the corner of it so that we can slide this through to the other side. Next, we can take our 2 connectors and run them behind this gap behind the headlight, and they'll pop out right down here behind our fender liner. And then we can pull our excess through to the floor. And then we'll just put that off to the side for now. We can clean that up later. Next, we can hook up our 2 battery terminal connectors. So we'll start with our positive over here. You can pull up on that little tab to pop the cover off. And then we'll grab a 10mm socket, pop off one of these nuts so we can slide our connector over it. And then we'll thread our nut back on, tighten it back down, pop our cover back down, and then we'll do the same thing with our negative. And then while we're here, we can clean up the wire from our switch. We'll zip tie all of this together, and then we can tuck it down right in between our battery and our fuse box. We'll bunch up all of this excess, and then we can grab a zip tie. And then a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters, cut off the excess of the zip tie, and then we'll tuck that away right down behind our fuse box and in between the fuse box and the battery. Next, we can hop inside the cabin and grab our switch, peel back the double-sided tape backing, and now you can stick this down anywhere you'd like. I've got a nice spot right here next to the hood latch, and we can just press that into place. So now we're ready to mount our front bumper. I've got myself a buddy to help me lift this up, get it installed, and then help me put the hardware on his side while I do it on my side. We have a flat washer, a lock washer, and a nut going on the back of each of these studs. I'm also going to be plugging in our connector for our parking sensors before I get this into the frame horns. Next, we can take an 18mm ratcheting wrench to tighten down our one nut on the outside and our two nuts on the inside. Now, it's going to be pretty much impossible to see the two nuts on the inside, but you can get a ratcheting wrench in there with just enough room to tighten them down. You can slide this tow hook cover off if you want a little bit more room to be able to get in there. And now you can do that same thing on the other side. So now I'm going to start running our connectors for our fog lights. I'm going to run the one towards the passenger side first, and then we can plug it into the driver's side. So I'm just going to be following our parking sensor harness right across the bumper. And then we can grab our other connector. Then we're just going to plug that right into our fog light. And then we'll start grabbing all of our excess, and I'm just going to zip tie this to our parking sensor harness. Now we can take a zip tie to zip tie that to our parking sensor harness. Then you can take your pair of scissors or diagonal cutters, chop off the excess. And then we'll go do that same thing on the other side. Now, one last note is with this bumper installed, our crash bars stick out under where the bumper sits. So if you want a cleaner look, you can go ahead and remove your crash bars. There are two 15mm bolts going through the top. So we can take a 15mm ratcheting wrench to remove those and pop them out. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the Barricade HD plate style full width front bumper with LED fog lights for your 2021 and newer Bronco, excluding Raptor. Thank you for watching, and for all things Bronco, keep it right here at extremeterrain.com.